Hi guys, this is Lishat from Scarlet Moon Creations, and I am back, and this is my August 2019 reading wrap-up video. It's a little awkward because this is my first time doing one of these videos. I am excited to talk about the books I read, so let's talk about them. In the future, I might have like more stats, information, but for my first video, I'm just gonna let you know I read 10 books in the month of August, and I was happy with most of them. They got, with one exception, pretty good reviews from me. So let's jump into it. First, just information wise, I participated in the Newt's Magical Readathon and Mythathon. So I had done the Owls Magical Readathon earlier this year and passed the Owls that I needed to for the potions, potioneer career, and continuing on that path, I took my newts with the focus on that. I'm not one who's going out to complete every single prompt in a readathon like the magical readathons. I'm just going for my career, and I'm happy to say that I achieved my goal. So yay. The Newt's Magical Readathon is hosted by G at Book Rose, and I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. The other readathon I participated in happily was Mythathon by Jesse at Bow Ties and Books. Again, link down below. I chose to be on Team Water. My sun sign is Scorpio, a water sign. Team Waters is also Team Apollo, and that was fun to do. I was excited to have this kind of mythology focused readathon, but also that I was able to kind of find books that fit for both the newts and for mythathon prompts. So as we go through, I'll let you know which books fit what prompts, but let's just talk about the books. Okay, so the first book I read in August was The Bullet Journal Method, and actually I didn't completely read this in August, I just finished it in August. I started it, I think, in January or February this year. Had to send it back because I had come across the fact that this wasn't just a read through. It's there's actual exercises and things that I might want to do. So I sent it back because it was due back at the library, and excuse me, took it out again for One Book July. Now, the Bullet Journal Method is by Ryder Carroll. He is the founder of the Bullet Journal system. Ryder created this analog system out of a need to organize his life and his thoughts in order to be more consistently focused and effective. Even though I know the system already and I didn't need to read the book, but I picked it up from the library since it was, like I said, the focus of One Book July this year. So I started it in July, didn't finish it until early August, basically. I'm glad I did pick it up. Particularly for me, the practice section sparked a lot of ways for me to improve my own personal bullet journaling system, and certain other parts reminded me of things that I hadn't gotten around to doing. I also love the art in the book. There are art pages. I'm doing this because they're not really. It's just like a spread. when you see the dot grid in the background, and it's examples of how you can use your bullet journal and whatever is being talked about in that section of the book. So it looks similarly like it would if you had a dot grid notebook. So I thought that was a cute addition. So yeah, definitely pick up the bullet journal method. I might do a book talk chat about that at some point, but I'm not sure. I definitely want to buy the book though. So that was a nonfiction book, obviously. The first fiction book I read and the first book that fulfills any of the prompts for the readathons was Times Convert by Deborah Harkness. There we go. It's a shiny cover. I own this. This was given to me by a friend because she already read it. I love this cover. And this book is, what did I read this for? For the Newt's Magical Readathon, I read Times Convert. For my Acceptable in Potions, a recommended book. So I low-key cheated on that one. Like I said, this was given to me by a friend. She was like, yeah, you should read this. It was recommended to me because I have read the All Souls trilogy, to which this is a companion novel. So she knew I liked the All Souls trilogy. She knew I basically wanted to read this because I do like Marcus's character in the All Souls trilogy, and so yeah, she gave it to me because she's not one to keep books. This also fulfilled the prompt in Mythathon for God of Healing and Diseases. That's Apollo is a god of healing and diseases. Pick a book where the main character battles an illness. I was hoping, because I knew from the All Souls trilogy that Marcus is a doctor, I was going to like kind of cheat on that one too and be like, yeah, he's a doctor, so he treats people with illnesses. But it turns out Marcus did go through two very virulent illnesses in his early life. So, other than this being the companion novel to the All Souls trilogy, this is an urban fantasy, paranormal romance, historical fantasy. There's a lot going on in this book and in the All Souls trilogy. Deborah Harkness does that on purpose. I like it. This is adult, basically. That. I love the whole look into a vampire's birth in the All Souls trilogy. All the vampires are kind of like been there, done that for a couple hundred years already, if not a whole heck of a lot longer. So seeing like a new baby vampire and basically learning how to be after it was born was really interesting. I like to see the development of the twins. That was a nice surprise. Was not expecting it at all. I found that the only thing I didn't like about this book was the kind of hard parts of Marcus's life that were alluded to in the All Souls trilogy. Just, an old flame, and when he was creating his own vampires at one point in New Orleans, those were kind of like dark marks on his history as far as other vampires were concerned. But it's talked about, but not. It didn't seem like it wasn't as delved into as I expected those two things or situations to be. So I don't know. And excuse the background talking if you can hear it. Someone decided to have a loud argument on the phone right outside. So I don't know what that's about. Okay, so the next book I read for the month of August was A Time of Contempt by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is book 4 of the Witcher series, or maybe for those of you who are not completely familiar with how the book order goes, Sapkowski did two collections of short stories about the Witchers first, and then the novels come. So when you get the books, the physical copies of the books, this book says the number 2 on the side, book 2 of the Witcher series, but it is the what do you call them? Short stories are part of the narrative, and it's really important that you read those first. So it's really book 4. So anyway, this is an English translation of Sapkowski's work. He's Polish, and this is a fantasy series. Like I said, translated from the original Polish. It has popular video games, which I've never played. I've heard of it, but no one I know that I'm aware of is really a diehard fan of the game, so I've never seen them play it. I've only seen playthroughs after I started reading. So yeah, this is my fave book in the Witcher series so far. There is an upcoming Netflix show based on this series as well. Not the video games, but on the books, which takes place before the video game plot and content. So anyway, this series follows Geralt, a witcher who kills monsters for a living, as well as Yennefer, an enchantress who can do magic, and Ciri, a young girl with a destiny that's tied to Geralt and Yennefer and the world as they know it. In this particular book series, growing up and becoming more independent, but also kind of really desperate not to be left behind, as she has been before, through, for the most part, no fault of the people who have left her. There's been a lot of death and change in her life, and she is desperate to kind of avoid that and the feelings that come with it. In this book, most of the focus is on Ciri, and everyone is looking for her. Meanwhile, the war in this world is really ramping up. Everybody basically has to choose a side. Really like the second half of this, from like the Conclave on, for those who've read it. The humor is still on point, still great, still wonderful. I do miss Geralt's point of view, which is very little in this, but I don't mind because I do like Ciri's point of view and how everything's going. Seeing like things from her head is interesting. I just really also want to know what's going on with Emperor Emir's, I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced, Emperor Emir's, like, what's his end goal? Why does he want Ciri? What does he want with this whole war? And for the Newt's Magical Readathon, I read this for my Exceeds Expectations in Potions, and yeah, that was it. I didn't. Autobiography by Christina Lauren is the next book that I read in the month of August. This is a YA contemporary about Tanner, a bisexual teenager from California who moves to Ohio, Idaho, Utah, a town that is 90% or more Mormon. I'm just like, that percentage wasn't stated, but they really hopped on there was a lot of Mormons in this town, and this was like a Mormon focused, not focused, highly populated town with Mormons. I don't know why my English is just done. For the Newts, I read Autobiography for Acceptable in Care of Magical Creatures, a title that starts with an A. And I just realized, so the two books before this, My Acceptable in Potions was the recommended book, and the Exceeds Expectations for Potions was a book in your house color. So I'm Gryffindor, and that's what a time of contempt fit for that. So yeah, Tanner is in this very Mormon town, not being a Mormon. His family is are not Mormons either. And religion wound up being a major point in this book, which was interesting. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, I read two books where religion was high on the plot, a big influence on the plot. Gosh. Anyway, so this is Tanner's last semester in high school, and he's ready to get the hell up out of this town. After that, but he falls in love with the Mormon bishop's son, Sebastian. I love this book. This is my first bisexual male YA book, and it was great. This is also my first Christina Lauren book, so I'm definitely ready to dive into more contemporaries by Christina Lauren. I loved how accepting Tanner's family was. It reminds me of my own, like, for different reasons, but just that overall, like, we are gonna accept you as you are. It might be difficult at times, and we might, especially from a parent's point of view, want to direct how your life would go, and we know that some things you do might be difficult, but we accept you anyway. This No one's perfect. We're just trying to be accepting, and that's all you can ask of anyone. Sebastian and their relationship, him and Tanner, it was so cute. It was sweet, and I thought realistic. I liked how things turned out at the end, of course. But even if they didn't quite turn out that way, like, just the escalation of their relationship was to die for. I melted. This book left me with like this complex cocktail of emotions at the end. Okay, so the next book I read for the month of August was Rock Addiction by Nalini Singh. This is an adult romance, contemporary romance, sorry. And it's by one of my favorite authors. I talked about Nalini Singh during the Letha Witchathon. I've been wanting to catch up on the series that I started with hers, and I saw that she had a contemporary series, so I was like, let me give those a try. I read Rock Addiction for the Newts, A in Arithmancy, a book that ends on an even number. And for Mythathon, I read it for Apollo, the God of Music. Read a book with a musician main character or music deeply influences the story, and it does. So we meet Molly, from New Zealand. She likes to live a low-key life because her childhood she was exposed to the ugly side of the media thanks to her parents. And then there's Fox, the love interest, who is a literal rock star. He is I think, the lead singer in a rock band. So they meet and it's like insta lust. The beginning was really rocky. I was ready to DNF this book a couple of times because I thought some cliches were about to happen. Like some cliched abusiveness from the alpha male, or like miscommunication being the entire plot, but every time I thought it was gonna go there, it swerved in a different, refreshing direction, which I so appreciate. Fox was confident and sometimes arrogant without steamrolling over Molly, and her non-consent, and they had a realistic level of drama, but they communicated their needs and wants to each other. Even at times when one would walk away and not want to deal with the situation, like they would let time pass a little bit and then come back in the middle to meet each other. The book was smutty all over the place, and their friend groups are interesting. Two things I happily enjoy lots of. More depth in the other relationships and more of the music side of the things rather than the business of music is all I found wanting. Yeah, so yeah, just getting past the cliche of virgin one night stands with a rock star at the beginning, and you'll be good to go. Alright guys, so this is Editor Lachette coming to let you know this is the end of part 1 of my August 2019 wrap up. I have been editing and cutting as much as I can, and it's still super long, so I don't want to give you absolutely nothing but a list of books, because that's not the point. I want to talk about the books I read, and if you are interested in them, whether to talk about them with me or to get them on your own, I want to provide, some basic information. And this feels weird because I read 10 books, or 11 books, technically, and not a huge amount, but I guess a lot when making a video. So, part 2 of my August wrap up will come in a couple of days, sometime next week, since this is already Saturday when you're seeing this. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. You can find all my social media links down in the description below, and a link to my Etsy shop as well. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you would like to see more, especially that wrap up part 2, and I'll see you guys next time.